It's time to accelerate. Hi, this is Andy. Welcome to another edition of Frontline Friday with my regular and very special guest, Bridget Gleason. Now, before we get to the show, Bridget and I have a favor to ask of you. We'd really appreciate it if you took time right now to leave a review for this show on iTunes. And while you're there, click the button, subscribe to Accelerate. Make sure you get Frontline Friday automatically each week. Also, we need to hear from you. More specifically, we need your sales questions. What can we answer for you? What challenges do you have that we can help you with? So go to accelerate.fm/frontline and enter your question there. Each month, we're going to select one listener's question to be the question of the month. And the winner will receive a $50 Amazon gift card. So remember, go to accelerate.fm/frontline to give us your question and maybe win $50. So Bridget, how are you today?
Andy, I was really listening intently there to see if it would be still very special. There was a big pause, and I thought maybe you were going to use a different descriptor.
Or I was reconsidering the whole special thing.
Reconsidering, is she really special? Is she not that special? She's been kind of hard to get a hold of lately. So I'm glad that I've maintained my status.
You still have, yeah.
Thank God.
Yes, all that's transparent to the people listening, but yes, you may be hard to get hold of these days, but
they don't know that.
They don't know that.
Good.
And I'm sure you're special in their books as well.
All right. Good. So everything's good. Everything's good.
Oh, wait, I didn't even get to ask. You're just preempting me. I didn't even get to ask. You just said everything's good. You're supposed to say everything is fantastic.
I know. I'm trying to change it up a bit.
Really? Rebranding?
I'm trying to rebrand. I'm trying to change it up. But it's all good.
It's all good. So today, where are you?
Today I am in beautiful Boston, and it's a beautiful day in Boston today. Sunny, warm for Boston. Well, not warm for Boston, but warm given the weather, how the weather has been in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
It's sunny. I think you and I talked about this before, that one of the great things about living in a place where the weather isn't nice all the time, like California, is you really appreciate when the weather turns nice. There's just a sense of appreciation and gratitude. And I don't know, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun.
So what you're saying is, in California, you don't have gratitude for the nice weather because it's just what is.
You take it for granted.
You take it for granted. Of course, not if you lived in the San Francisco area this year, where it rained incessantly. And I was there last week, and it was raining still.
I know. I was there for a bit also. That's true, but that's such an anomaly, and we need. I'm still bi-coastal, so I feel like I'm an East Coast and I'm a West Coast now.
Mm-hmm.
My West Coast persona needed the water, the rain.
Got it. And the East Coast, you just took a shower.
Exactly. East Coast, I could just God, I don't think I'm in the shower, and I think I can use as much water as I want. Look how much it's raining out there. We got no shortage.
There you go. All right. So I guess one question I have to ask is, did you get up and do your run this morning?
Andy, of course I did.
Of course you did. Okay.
Yes, I did.
Do you have any races or competitions coming up?
God, I know. I used to do those. I've done a couple of marathons. I used to do 10Ks. I haven't done a race or competition in quite some time. And let me tell you why, before you ask.
Okay.
Here's why. I am so competitive with myself. And when I was training for a race, every morning I'd go out and I'd do my time, and I needed to be better. And I've got too much going on right now that I had to take a break. Well, I've taken a long break. I don't need any other things trying to compete with me. So I've put that on a pause, a big long pause. So the answer is no, not right now.
All right. So in the future.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
In the future.
In the future. Yeah. Okay. All right. Just checking, just to see. You have to some bar to measure yourself against.
I've got enough. Okay, remember, I know you haven't forgotten, but for any of our listeners, this is called Frontline Friday. Okay, front line.
You're on the front lines.
Yes. And when you're on the front lines, it takes a lot of focus. And so I have to choose what my energy and attention is focused on. And so my mental energy goes to my front line. Right now, my front line is logs.io.
Logs.io.
That's my front line.
All right. Well, I mean, if you guess you're not getting your competitive, juices running by the, running or doing half marathons or marathons, so on. So you've got it in business.
Definitely.
So I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, or actually maybe it was last week. Hard time remembering at this point, and got several questions from some people that sort of cornered me and were asking questions, and it's all about competition. That's why I sort of brought up competitions early on is but competition in sales. And they were talking about, somebody asked me, how do you compete on price? Well, I thought it was an interesting question. And I don't know, it's got me thinking, okay, well, how much do you worry about competition or think about competition?
Well, when isn't there competition? When is there really no competition? No competition. You've got no competition.
Right. Now, you always have competition. But I mean, dude, I know some people are really fixated on it, right? I mean, they talk about having their deals, they're going to have competitive strategies and so on. And I don't know. I've spent years in extremely competitive businesses, but I couldn't control the competition. I was only focused on what I could do.
So I think that's true. I think I can only focus on what I can do also, but it's helpful for me to have an understanding, at least to know where I'm strong, where the competition might be not so strong. And so to sort of understand how I may be able to differentiate based on what the competition has. That's not the only strategy, because like what you're saying, reps sell differently. Let me just take a step back. I have 2 reps in the office. Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk about 2. I don't have just 2, but these 2 reps in the office. One,
can they hear you now?
No, they can't hear me right now, but I wouldn't care if they did.
Okay.
But one of them has the approach that you have, which is people ask about competition. He'll say, you know what? I'm not an expert on them, but here's what I do know. And given the problem that you have, this is how we solve it. The other one takes a slightly different approach and understands ahead of time sort of where the landmines are, given what the competition doesn't have and we have, and really works to play off where we're strong versus maybe what the competitor is. So there are different ways to handle it. I think you need to have it, both of them work. And I think the focus is, what is the problem you have and how can I help you solve it? That has to be the focus. They've got other people don't buy necessarily the product or service that they don't necessarily even buy the problem or service that solves the problem the best, nor is the cheapest. Sometimes they do, but they're just looking for someone to solve the problem. That's my experience.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, that's. I always felt like I was competing against my own, and I still do. I feel like I'm competing against my own limitations.
Yeah.
To be able to help the prospect.
Yes.
And thus that's the motivation to keep learning and be able to provide more value to the prospects that I deal with, because there could be somebody way smarter than me that's competing against me from a competitor, let's say for a prospect's business. But to your point, if I can just get better at helping them solve their problem, then that's all I can worry about. And if I do that, and if I keep working at it and mastering it, then the odds of me winning the business goes up.
Yeah, I think even this weekend I went and I bought new running shoes this weekend. And I don't buy new running...
For that race you're entering.
For the race I'm entering. I don't buy new running shoes. Well, I tend to buy the same shoe over and over. Buy it online. I haven't gone to a store to buy a shoe for a long time. I know it's my sizes. I know the brand I like. I know
So
I
what do
can
you
get
buy?
them cheaper online.
What's your brand?
I like, well, I have a different brand pair right now, but I've had typically these Asics.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy, I can't tell you how long I've had. I just buy whatever the new version model they come out with. I just buy that. I've done it for probably 20 years.
The gel Kayano.
It's the gel. It's not it's maybe the Kayano now.
Yeah.
And I just never, I don't get injured. I don't get, so I stick with it.
Yeah, it's a great reason to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
me too. I've run mostly in New Balance. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, when I was traveling once, I'm just trying not to make this so tangential, but it does relate. When I was traveling, they didn't have the kind I wanted. I bought a different pair, and I love them. They're Adidas. I bought them in London, and I haven't been able to find the follow-on. So I went to a store here in Boston, Marathon Sports. They helped me try on a bunch of shoes, and I knew I can get these online. I can figure it all out online. I can do all of this online. They're not the cheapest. They may not even be the best. But here was somebody who was willing to go through and help me identify what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I trusted this person, this Marathon Sports. A lot of runners go there. I bought them. Yeah, I can get them cheaper somewhere else. Yes, I could have gone and had a different brand that may be slightly better for my foot. I went with a name that I knew and trusted. I valued that they helped me. I knew they were more expensive, and I still bought them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the best solution for your problem.
Exactly.
At that time.
At that particular moment in time. And it was frictionless. And I think that's what our prospects and buyers are looking to us for. Who's going to help me solve the problem? Where's the least amount of friction?
Well, we can make a running analogy of this because, friction in running shoes result in blisters,
See?
Sales blisters. Avoid sales blisters.
Exactly. That's what people don't want when you're hard to deal with and they don't like putting the shoes on in the morning and they hurt and so that just the easier you are to deal with, the better. And so competition, yes. Who's the competition? Well, there were 5 running stores, like within a half-mile radius, literally half-mile radius, competition all over the place. I didn't go to the cheapest. I didn't go. I went with reputation, and I went with who's going to help me. So I happened to wander into that one.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not had the salesperson created more friction, I would have walked out. I wouldn't have bought them. I would have gone 2 doors down. I would have gone online.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, not to overwhelm people with running shoe stories, but I also bought some running shoes 2 weekends ago. And yeah, similar issue. I always go to, you give your plug to Marathon. I give my plug to Roadrunner Sports if you're in the San Diego area. Plus, they have stores elsewhere in the country.
Yeah, they're good. I like them too.
But the service is excellent. They do the fittings, on the machines. They have their treadmill and their shoe fitting devices that, you can do the little shoe dog assessment. And yeah, I mean, you're at that point, unless you're just absolutely positively convinced you need to get the absolute lowest price, yeah, you're not going to walk out of there before you buy a pair of shoes because they've helped you. I mean, in depth.
Yeah, they've done a lot to help. Right. And so I value that.
Oh, I do too. Yeah, that's there's a VIP club at Roadrunner, and not this time, but the time before when I went to Roadrunner, they always ask me to check out. Are you a member of our VIP club because you get a little extra discount? And I said, yeah, and she looked at my record and she goes, "Oh, yes, you are."
She did?
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I know. I've probably paid some people's salaries in here. Yeah, it's weakness. New
it's
running
a good
shoes.
thing.
New
I know.
Shoes.
I know. Having good new running shoes is so great.
Yeah. And I'm sure I could wear mine longer, but what can I say? I'm not as bad as some people, but my wife would tell you I could probably wear mine a little bit longer.
Well, if that's your one thing, it's probably not your one thing, but
if that was my
okay.
one thing, yeah. If that was my one thing,
it sounds like it's not.
Yeah, she'd be laughing if she heard this. So, okay, so competition. We sort of went through that a little bit. I to sort of wrap it up. We always have competition on a deal, right? I mean, that could be the status quo. I mean, in most cases, that is the competition. And, I think that's one that reps don't spend enough time thinking about, right? Because they presume if the customer's in process and there's multiple companies, there are multiple vendors they're talking to, that it's sort of a done deal that the customer is actually going to make the decision to do something. And we all know from our own experience and experience managing teams and pipelines that a high fraction of the time, nothing happens, right? The decision is made to do nothing right at the moment. And so I work with people and say, look, you really have to consider this. And this is based on research that a professor at Ohio State, I think is, I'll say Paul Nutt is his name, but I could have the last name wrong. But where he said, people are making decisions. There's actually two sort of decisions that get made. He calls one a decision and one a choice. Is that, first of all, you have to make the decision where you think you're going to make a change. So the buyer has to say first, make this binary decision, yes, no, we're going to make a change or we're not going to make a change. And I think too often sales reps find themselves selling past that point too early. And what they should be doing is really focusing early on, making those connections, getting engaged, identifying the issues and where the gaps are that need to be filled, and making sure early as possible that the prospect really understands the value proposition and has enough information to make that go, no-go decision.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's very easy to skip over that. And I always tell the team here that how you set up that first call and what that initial discovery is likely the most important, because that sets the tone for the entire engagement and how you work together. And if you haven't, and the discovery continues all the way through, but
sure.
if you haven't fully explored the implications of, say, for example, doing nothing, it's going to be hard when it comes to budget time for them to vote in your favor if you haven't really explored that with them.
Well, vote in favor of doing something. So I mean,
doing something.
So what? Again, I think as Paul Nutt was his name, once then the binary decision is made, then the buyer has to make a choice about who they're going to make the change with. So there's this decision point first, yes, no, binary decision, we are going to make a change, we aren't going to make a change. And to your point is, if you haven't helped the customer understand the value, and I don't think it has to be to the nth degree because there's still more selling to be done, but they have to know to enough of a degree to understand that, yes, we can make a decision confidently that moving ahead with the change is going to help us meet our objectives, our aspirations, our goals, whatever. But again, if you sort of sell past it, you're going to get that dreaded no decision.
Right, because you've just skipped over. You've just skipped over it, and typically reps will go to, like you said, they'll get caught in the weeds.
Well, also, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, so they get caught in the weeds talking about the features. This is a great feature, and how might that help? Or even getting locked in the competition. That's another place to get caught in the weeds. Focus too much on that as opposed to focus on what their problem is and how you're helping them to solve it.
Well, and so here's the real critical issue is if you sell past that initial decision, that initial binary decision, and the customer decides to go ahead, it means that they made their decision to go ahead probably based on someone else's value proposition.
Yeah, I had a conversation today with a candidate we're talking to about for a VP of customer success role. Mm-hmm. And he asked, what were after they become a customer, what were their expectations? What are their expectations of what Logsci was going to provide? And we had a really good discussion about that. And I said, I think our problem right now is we haven't done a good job as a salespeople setting up what those expectations should be, understanding what the customer's expectations are, mm-hmm. and then helping also to define them. That all starts at the beginning. And even in terms of like what you're talking about, once they've made a decision to, yes, I want to buy something, and even if, let's say, they end up buying it, were you the one that helped set the expectation for, are they going to be happy with it after they bought it? The selling doesn't stop after you've closed the deal, especially in a SaaS company.
Well, no, not at all.
And so you've got the selling needs to continue. And again, if you've sold past that initial sort of what is the pain and what's the solution for that, if you've just sold past that too quickly, and it's sort of a muddy value proposition that they don't even know exactly what it is that they should expect, you could have a really difficult time when it comes to, let's say you get the deal, when it comes to renewal, when it comes to keeping them as happy customers, it's going to be more challenging.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I don't know if we've spoken about this before, but I know I've addressed it with other guests, is that, and it's really important for everyone to keep in mind, is that when a customer makes a decision, assuming there are multiple vendors selling into the buyer, is when they make their decision, it's very likely that in their mind, the buyer, that they have conflated the best features from everyone they spoke to. And so what their expectation of what they're getting is really an amalgamation of all the products that are sold to them. Maybe not, at least at a high level, and sometimes even at a detailed level. And that's just natural because, people are human beings and they're trying to absorb a lot of information over a relatively short period of time, and they get confused.
God, that's so interesting. I've never thought of that.
So what's really important to do is after you get a deal, especially a big deal, but I have reps do it after every deal, is you get the order and the next day you pick up the phone, you call the customer, and you just say, hey, I just want to review what it is you ordered. And you start by saying, you came to us with these requirements. This is what we proposed. This is why you purchased it. This is what we're going to deliver and when. And you can do that all in like 15 minutes. And then you've reset expectations. So they know what you're delivering. And it's just a great way so that you get that first, implementation period going on. And if the customer's confused and they still think something in their mind unintentionally, that you're going to deliver, it really was, your primary competitor, that's a bad place to be in.
Such a good idea to do that. We do sort of a version of that with a proof of concept document that kind of follows them through the process, mm-hmm. and that they have the prospect has as a selling document for them internally as well. But I like the sort of summary right after they've purchased. I think that's such a great idea, just again, because the selling doesn't stop after you've gotten the purchase order.
Right. No, absolutely. Especially in a SaaS business, any other sort of subscription service-based business. Yeah, set those expectations, because if they have a bad experience right off the bat, as you mentioned before, that's going to stick with them. And when it comes time to renew, that could be problematic.
Definitely can be problematic. That's the last thing you want, because every time you get up for a renewal, again, they're mentally in this question mark state again.
Mm-hmm.
Do I renew with XYZ company? Well, let me pick my head up and see what else is out there.
Yeah, because they surprised me the last time when you really didn't, but their perception was you did.
Right.
So,
right.
And their managers, I know, that counsel against doing that call because they're afraid the customer's going to like buyer's remorse and cancel the order. And that's just BS. It never happens. Never, never, never happens. So do that refresher call. I call it the most important sales call you can make because, yeah, if you don't start off that relationship on a good foot, yeah, you're going to lose that customer when it comes time to renew.
So that's where a SaaS model is great for our customers. It's good for us too. It keeps us on our toes as salespeople and product development. I mean, everything, engineering, service, customer success, support. We've all got to deliver better, more consistent, reliable service because it's easier than ever for customers to make a change and go somewhere else.
Absolutely. All right, Bridget, we've come to the end of, this episode. So soon.
Yeah, luckily not the end.
Not the end. So it's, friends, thank you again for joining us like you do every Friday. And make sure you come back again next Friday to join us. And in the meantime, you can listen to all these great episodes of Accelerate that are on every day of the week as well. And Bridget, until next week.
Until next week, I will talk to you then.
All right. Good selling, everyone.